All right, I'll just give it a few more moments just to make sure it's synced. So here we are. Yes, so we are live. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's Snack and Chat, Adopt a Life's weekly Facebook Live, where we explore the topics that are top of mind for families formed by adoption, kinship, and customary care. My name is Chantal, Community Engagement Liaison with Adopt for Life, and I'm here taking care of the tech and monitoring the chat and posting links and key takeaways for the discussion today and going forward. So if you need to report anything to do with the video or audio, just go ahead and put that in the chat and we'll hopefully take care of it ASAP, but hopefully you can hear us and see us well. Today we have a special guest host. Nancy Lockwood is with us today. So hi, Nancy. Thanks so much for being with us. And we're here with our guest, Miranda Myers, and we're all going to talk about the book, FASD&Me, Strengthening My Community. So we're really looking forward to this. So whether you're watching us live right now, or maybe you're watching later on replay, thanks so much for taking time to join us. Feel free to ask your questions, just put them in the chat below, or if you have any comments, or just let us know that you're watching, we appreciate it. I'll just remind you that we are live streaming on our public Facebook page. So that basically means whatever information you're putting in the comments is publicly available. So do be mindful to not include any identifying information because that will be out there in the World Wide Web. So we appreciate that. And I'm just going to take a little moment to introduce Nancy in case those of you watching don't know. Nancy Lockwood is an FASD consultant and educator with over 25 years of work and lived experience supporting individuals of all ages with FASD. Her current work includes building capacity at provincial and national agencies to increase their ability to support people of all ages with FASD and facilitating support groups for caregivers. Previously, Nancy managed Able2's fetal alcohol resource program. Program she helped to design in collaboration with Kids Brain Health Network, CHIO, and the Children's Aid Society of Ottawa. Nancy has provided customized FASD education workshops to thousands of professionals and frontline workers in multiple sectors. So join me in welcoming Nancy. Thank you. And our guest today is Miranda, who some of you will know, of course. For those that don't, Miranda adopted 2 sibling groups from foster care through the Children's Aid Society and Dilico Anishinaabe Family Care. She has fostered Indigenous children for over 11 years and is a proud white co-parent to 2 grandchildren. Miranda has parented children with FASD, ADHD, RAD, complex trauma, mental health challenges, and developmental delays, as well as issues with substance use and running away. She has experience with treatment facilities, the justice system openness, transitioning children into adult care, and advocating for permanency relationships. Miranda represents the Fetal Alcohol Support Information Network on her public school board's Special Education Advisory Committee. She volunteers through the Norwest Health Center, which facilitates community FASD training and has her mental health certificates for teenagers and for Indigenous people. So thanks so much, Miranda. And I know that there's probably so much more to say because there's probably been some updates since that bio was written. So thanks so much, Miranda, for taking time for being with us today on Snack and Chat. I'm just going to pass it right over to Nancy because I know there's already a ton of questions lined up for you. And of course, if you have any questions for us live, feel free to put them in the chat. And that's it for me. Thank you.
So thanks, Chantal, and I'm really happy to be chatting with you today, Miranda. Miranda already knows that I'm a huge fan of her book, and I'd already been using it a lot in frontline work with families. But I just want to start by asking you, Miranda, it says right on the front that it was inspired by Hope Myers and Miranda Myers. So I want you to tell us a bit about why you wrote this book and how you were involved in the actual project and creation of it.
Um, well, my daughter Hope was just in the process of getting her diagnosis for FASD when we were going through the neuropsych. And I was really struggling because she was 13 years old. And I'd already gone through one of my oldest adoptive daughters had got diagnosed with FASD around 13. And it was a really challenging, trying time for a child to get a diagnosis, being in grade 7 and the social struggles that they already dealt with. And then having her I wanted her to embrace the whole process versus her struggling with it. So I came up with this idea of trying to approach it in a way that was like in unity, where we could do it together. And I knew that she needed a community to surround her to be able to help her through her diagnosis, especially going into grade 7 and 8 and then into high school. And I wanted her to feel confident about the diagnosis, not feel any struggles as much as possible. So I wanted to create a tool that would help her kind of navigate this through, but also a tool that could help me navigate through everything with her. Just to build on that community feeling. And that was kind of how it was going, how it worked out in my head. And it actually came out better working with Van and working with Health Nexus and Adopt for Life to get this going. It worked out so perfectly. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. And I'm just super excited that we're talking about it and that we're going forward with everything that's going forward with the training and everything.
Oh, thank you. And for people who aren't familiar with the book, can you tell us what some of the benefits are of using the book and give us some examples of how it could be used?
Well, my number one goal is that to create as much awareness about FASD and how it affects the brain in our community. And then also as a tool that would help the child to start talking about it and even taking a little bit of control of their how it affects them. It's a tool that everybody can use to help the child navigate through advocating for themselves. And then as well as the parent as a tool that you can give the child and put like in their backpacks, or that the child can open up and use it as needed. Early intervention is the key for this. I think if you start younger and using the book at a younger age, it becomes a really great tool so that the child can just grow with the book and grow with their knowledge of how it's affecting their education. Or I use it this summer for a 4-year-old going into the Boys and Girls Club as a tool to help the volunteers understand him better. So that's kind of how I envisioned how this book would be, but it's turned out to be a lot more of a tool for the parents as well. And I'm really excited to see that happen too.
Yeah, I've actually seen too, it gets some conversations going too, where sometimes people don't know how to get it going, but it even if they're looking at it together. Have you found that?
Yeah, definitely. It's been exciting to see how the kids like looking through it based on where they're at. I have got one teenager who doesn't want to go near it, but we talk about it so openly in our home. It's actually the other day, she like she used it as well, I have FASD and you don't understand, and it's my walk. And it's all the same conversation. So like keeping it consistent, keeping the conversations simple so that the kids can embrace where they're headed with their diagnosis.
And it's not really like a traditional book of information. It's more of a workbook. Can you sort of walk us through what's in the book?
Well, it starts off with how it affects the brain. And I didn't add points to that. I wanted people to research it because every child's different. I didn't want to be specific. I wanted the parents to look into the different domains so that they could understand it. I've actually gone through my children's neuropsychs and then cross-referenced with the domains and just looked into things. And it's educated me in ways that was supportive just for each individual child's needs. And then a big thing for me as a mom was the behaviors. It's like I'm constantly advocating that my kids don't understand consequences and they don't understand how traditional discipline works.
And over the years, it's amazing how many people kind of pushed me aside, and then they were dealing with the children's behaviors at the schools a different way than we were dealing with them at home. So I wanted people to have a tool for the parents to support the reason why we do things differently. And then talking about the child's strengths, because it's very strength-based. We need to redirect these children, give them tools to, I just had a meeting with my FASD worker this morning, and just keeping the children at a level where they're not heightened, and just what we do in our homes. And then they need to go to school, and they need to have the same kind of environment. So the teachers and the SSPs and everybody in the classrooms need to understand the tools that we use at home. So the workbook is there so that it's just a reminder to everybody around what works for the child, because every child is different. We talk about with the educators, the misconceptions of what's out there. I really wanted the children to be part of this piece so that they can take a little bit of ownership of how they can affect, so they can take ownership of what's going on in their lives. So they can talk about their challenges and put it down on paper. If they need support with their mom or their dad. In my home, my children got diagnosed at 13 and 14. So they did not want to talk about it with me. So I got counselors to use the book, to work with them, to help them work through things. Some of the counselors didn't have the book open with them. They just talked to them about what their challenges are so that they could incorporate it, start thinking about things of how they could strengthen their own approach on how they're going to talk about this with their teachers or with their friends, just to get the support that they need. And just really working on their strengths based on how they can approach everything to life. And then understanding meltdowns is really, especially when they're younger, just understanding how the meltdowns work, and then coming up with a consistent way that we can work as a community to help these children navigate through their meltdowns. As the children get older, you deal with different things. I like in my bio, it talked about, the legal system and how things work. And I've had to, approach police officers and, and get support in ways that work for the children. And then helping me, how can they help? I want it to be personal. I did some key points, but moms and dads out there, you can add to it what's specific to your children, some strategies for success. And then the triggers, I did that as a part for the kids so that they're very aware of what their triggers are. And then you can work with what they can do. As we talk a lot about in our home about safety plans, what they can do to help with their triggers and come up with their own safety plans that work for them. Because if they choose, and especially as they get into the teenage years, they choose how they handle things. It's a lot helpful for them as well as everybody else to help navigate the change. And I ended on an advocacy piece because I wanted things to change for my daughter, for Hope, so that she can start advocating for herself. So as she gets older and she navigates through the system and becomes an adult and navigates through that, I wanted her to be able to take ownership of things so that she knows, like even right now, like she's going to be 16 next year and everybody's talking about their driver's license. And she even says, I know I'm not going to get my driver's license, and she's okay with it. And she's very confident about that. Whereas my other daughter, who's 22, she was very upset about not getting her driver's license when she turned 16. It was a difficult transition, and she wasn't as confident an understanding of that. So that's the advocacy piece was really important to me. I wanted to teach my daughter how to advocate for herself, and I wanted to do that in a way that the community embraces this. So in the book, it gives her opportunities to talk about it, and then also bring it up to people that are important to her, like her counselors, her SSPs, her educators, like everybody in her life. So that's how, that's why I ended on the advocacy piece. I really wanted my children to advocate for themselves.
You gave some really good examples there, and it's interesting too. I love in the book how you focus on not only their strengths, but how can they build on those strengths to compensate for some of their challenges. And even when you give the example of learning to drive, I know that some people with FASD don't or can't, and some can, but some have even needed accommodations. I worked with a young person who I knew had studied for their G1 and knew the material, but they just were so anxious in that setting with everybody writing them and kept failing. But then when we had one-to-one support where they advocated and said, I need to do this in a quiet room with someone reading the questions, they got 100%. So again, that's what you were just saying. It's helping people realize it might not be that they can't do it, but even in something like that, we might need to give accommodations. And I love how you're helping the young person build their own advocacy skills.
Yeah. Very,
Yeah.
and my daughter that I said that didn't get it, I'm actually proud to report she's 21 years old right now, and she just got her G1. So
Okay.
it taught me a lesson because I was nervous about that. And so she did it on her own, and she is 21, and just last week she sent a picture of her G1 and she's got her driver's license, and now she's taking driver's ed. So I'm so proud of her. That's a big, huge, it was a big, huge eye opener for me, but she was adamant about learning, and she did it, and she did it because she advocated for herself and she kept persevering, and I'm so proud of her.
That's also interesting because it's an example too of remembering that their developmental age might not be the same as their chronological age. So at 16, she may not have been ready, but at 21, developmentally, maybe she was ready.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So last week, Adopt for Life hosted a webinar for educators based on this book, and I helped to give the webinar. I'm curious what you see would be the benefits if educators were using this book. How would that impact our education system?
Create a lot of awareness and surround the child with based on their needs. Just make it personal, and making it strength-based so that the child takes ownership of their own triggers, takes ownership of where they want it, where they see themselves in their community. I'm big on having a go-to person where there's one person in the schools that gets the children and gets the parent and works together on that, so that it's not like a bunch of different people coming in and helping out. It's hard sometimes when there's somebody sick or something like that, but keeping it simple for the child so that there's always a go-to person, and then they can come to me, like, and it works amazing for the children, and then they can help advocate that for that child, especially when that child is doing a meltdown, or just and think of different ways of how the child can navigate through the difficult time that they're going through, so that it just builds on their confidence, because the more that they are at an even environment, there's less opportunities to trigger them. And the more that we can teach the children what triggers them and come up with that safety plan of how they can cope, it just builds the child's confidence, and especially as they grow, when they start getting to be teenagers and their hormones kick in. Like, I don't know if most people have experienced this, but I found my children regressed a lot. Some of the things that I dealt with when they were younger, it kind of came back up again during their teenage years. And we had to just kind of backtrack a little bit and work through things with them. So.
Yeah, and I also find if we can explain to educators that this is actually going to make their job easier too. It's almost like understanding this new student in your classroom right away, and what are the things you can do to make things run more smoothly, but avoid meltdowns, avoid those triggers, and it's going to make all the classrooms safer. And so many of those things will actually benefit everyone in the classroom as well. I'm curious about Hope. How is Hope doing?
Hope is doing really, really good. She's in grade 10 right now. She is the sweetest, development, probably like a 6-year-old.
Mhm.
Yeah. When I started this book, I was hoping she was going to get involved a little bit more with FASD&Me and, help advocate and do some public speaking. But she's kind of shied off. She's a very humble girl. She doesn't want to do anything with it, but she's very aware of that. And, again, it's just letting her advocate for herself, and her understanding that that we're there for her. And, she loves the fact that Adopt for Life has supported this. And it's really, she's such a special girl. But she's young. So for her to do that public speaking and getting involved in this, she's not ready for that yet. But I do see that happening as she gets older and kind of just looks into things and where her life is going and stuff. But she's one special girl. Right now, everything is about animals. She just loves her animals.
Which is something really common in the FASD community too. I know everyone is unique, but that comes up so often, and even that's helpful for people in their support network to know that animals can be so calming. Do you find that sort of thing?
Yeah, and I had to come out of my shell because she loves anything soft and furry and cuddly, and it's been a great tool for me to help her develop her independence, because everything is for the animals. She's the type of kid that if we go for a walk, she stops and pets every animal and says hello. She talks to animals. They are more of a friend to her than anybody that she's come across. So it's her comfort zone, and that's, so I'm hoping I've been using that as a tool to help me help her grow her with her independence.
Yeah.
I had to kind of set some boundaries in my home because we had at one point 2 guinea pigs, 2 rabbits, a hamster, and a dog, and it was too overwhelming for her. But
Yes.
and I taught her what her limits are. I had to break out of my shell and allow too many animals in the house, but then now she's ready and she realizes what her limits are. So it strengthened her. It was hard, but we worked through it.
So it sounds like she's discovering her strengths over time. Do you find from when she first filled out the book, has she discovered herself new strengths or new triggers, new challenges?
Yeah, definitely. She's very aware. The idea is to work together with the community. So school, she spent so much time at school. So just to make sure that her confidence is constantly nurtured. And last year when we were in the online schooling, every single time the teachers would talk about her animals, and it got her connected. That was how they redirected her to get her focused. So they revolved all of her teaching strategies for her around her animals. So
Excellent.
doing woodworking. So they allowed her to make a hamster cage in woodworking class. So it got her completely engaged. I was so happy because last year was grade 9, right? So, and then we had all the online stuff going on, and every project was around animals, and it calmed her. It got her engaged, and she ended up getting like all 80s, and I was so proud of her last year.
That's wonderful. That's so interesting. And it kind of leads to the fact that Adopt for Life is publishing these downloadable worksheets. So even if people have purchased the book this month, and I'm sure Chantal can tell us more, Adopt for Life is going to be posting downloadable worksheets in case they want to be able to share or update things that they've filled in the book. Do you see that, as something that Hope would find useful?
Oh, definitely. I even think counselors with her, just to navigate through things. During the teenage years, I've had to back off a little bit and allow other people in our community to help her navigate through some of the concerns. So, she has an OT, and I've taken this approach so they could use those worksheets with their OT just to keep everything consistent and simple and strength based around her needs and what she is looking for and where she's headed in life, right? Because I don't know that. Only she knows that.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to an adoptive kin or customary care caregiver who's at the beginning of their journey with a child with FASD or suspected FASD? What advice would you give to them?
If it's just educate yourself as much as possible on what FASD is and get to know your child's needs. It's been very sacrificial on my part where I've had to just kind of step back and just, okay, well, what does she need at this point? Keep yourself balanced is probably the biggest advice I can give you. If you're in a good mood and you're calm and you're nurturing, you can engage in helping the child a lot more, especially during their triggers.
Mhm.
Trying to keep things, your home at an even keel so that the child doesn't get triggered. And then at the same time, trying to keep that environment at school so that the child isn't triggered. It was really hard because sometimes the children are keeping it together all day at school, and then they're coming home and escalating at home.
Mhm.
There's reasons for that. So it's keeping the balance at school so that they don't come home with it, or keeping the balance at or vice versa, trying to figure out how the school can keep things balanced. That's, to me, was hard at one point. So I've worked closely with the school now. I started off at the beginning of the year meeting with teachers and principals and educators that SSPs. And then I meet usually around January again, and then I meet at the end of the school year again. And if there's a transition to a different school, I start that in April with my children. And this year, I have 3 kids that are FAC that ended up going into grade 9. One of my children had a counselor that met with her every weekly for the whole month of August, just helping her navigate through the stresses of going to school and starting grade 9 at a new school, high school. So as much as possible, get the community support to grow as the child grows.
And do you involve the Adopt for Life regional parent liaison or FASD workers when you're doing that?
Well, it's hard for me because I'm a regional parent liaison.
You are.
Definitely, I would. They're a huge. I've learned so much since working at Adopt for Life. It's been 3 years now. And I'm so thankful for this community, especially with what I've learned in the last year. The support is needed for you as a parent. If you have any questions, reach out to your RPL. And if they don't know the answer, somebody in our family supports will know the answer for you. And then I have your FASD worker within your communities. Mine is a huge support here in Thunder Bay. She meets with me weekly, and we talk about
Wow.
every week for an hour, and she helps navigate things. And I'm black and white with her. I give her my concerns, and if I if I have a struggle with something, and she'll give me advice on how to handle it in the best way that she can, without so that, because every home is different, every family is different, so they navigate around that. And the more that she can get to know you, the more she can help navigate how things work in your own home. And working together with safety plans, just making sure that your kids feel safe and feel supported. And that's really, really important for our children. They know right from wrong, but when they feel safe and they feel supported, our kids always make the right decision. Always. I've learned that. I've had to learn to put my arms up and just say, okay, I've done everything I can. Now it's her decision to make the right decision.
That's awesome. What are some of the things you put in a safety plan?
I usually get the kids involved. We talk about the issue. That's first off, usually it happens because of an escalation, right? They've done something that's not safe, and you need to talk about it. And when they're in that heightened state, I never talk to my children in that when they're in that state. I wait till the right time. One of my daughters, we go for, well, we haven't done, she's been good lately, but we used to go for midnight car rides because she couldn't sleep. So, and then we go for midnight car rides, or sometimes it would be 2 o'clock in the morning. And then we talk about safety plans, and we talk about the background of why we make these decisions. And then we talk about, okay, well, what do you think we should do? And sometimes it takes a lot of conversations until they start to realize why we're coming up with a safety plan. Because especially with teenagers, push, pull, push, pull. Mm-hmm. Younger, it's being there for them. It's just being nurturing and just making sure that you're there to support them so they feel supported. You know, there's I do time ins where I spend time with the child when they're at that state, and then when they're calm, we have a talk. Okay, that's, you're not safe, and or that, and we talk about why they're triggered and why they need to come up with a different way of how they're going to handle it, the situation. And as you nurture the children, they just kind of slowly learn and build on really good habits. It's hard. Like once I had to like yelling, you know, like, because you're like, sometimes you want to calm them down and you just lose it as a mother. I've really had to learn to stop the yelling because they're learning from me, because these kids take on. And so yelling was a big thing. So as you know, I grew up with my mom nagging at me and stuff like that. So I had to learn to calm and change me to adapt to what they need, because they were learning from me and building on their own habits, and I didn't want them to learn the yelling or the nagging, because these kids they're learning this, and that's a learned behavior. So I had to teach them a different way. So I had to search within myself to teach them a new way of handling things. So
I think that's so true. And often they tend to really mirror back whatever you're giving them. So if you can keep calm, and it's not always easy, and nobody can be expected to always be calm, but if you can, they tend to reflect your calm. I find that's really helpful for teachers to know too, that even if you're feeling frustrated with them, they're going to sense it, and they may try to push your buttons in return, but if instead you show you're calm and that you really like them, they'll probably like you back and try to please you. Do you find that too?
Yeah, I find that so much. Like Hope is actually, she's one of those children, when she's escalated, she can't filter her emotions, right?
No.
So when she's really escalated, she's like right by my side and talks a mile a minute. I get no, today going back to school, I'm just waiting for a phone call. I no break when she's in those moods and those heightened situations. And it's really hard as a parent. So I've had to like come up with again a community. Like, okay, when she's in those moods, I have to see if I can find a respite worker. I have to try to get her out of the house, go to a friend's house, so that I get that break, so I get myself in the right frame of mind to be able to handle, making sure that I'm handling the situation for her best interest. And it's hard sometimes. It's really, really hard. But you know, we've worked through it together, and you know, now she's at a point right now, like 2 years ago, it's like she didn't get it, but now she's at a point, she's growing, so we can talk about, okay, you're stressing me out, I need a break. Mm-hmm. That triggers sometimes, right? So she's gotten in a better place. So when I say, well, I'm stressed out, then it triggers her out, and then she doesn't want to leave me even more. I haven't let go of that. So the goal is that when I'm stressed out, she has to leave. But so it's just constantly being self-aware and just being able, like the goal is for her to understand my body language and my needs, which is hard for her. So we just slowly, it's a goal, and it's going to take a long time for her to understand that. But then once she gets that connection, then she moves on and she gets it, and then we've worked through it.
That's really good. And then you can talk about it when they're no longer in that sort of fight or flight state, right? Because they aren't really listening to you when they're there. You've got to wait till they're calm, and you just seem to intrinsically know that, or have discovered what works, right? Yeah.
They're struggling with that executive functioning. So looking to the neuropsych, like I've And I've talked to the lady who's done the assessment, and she gives so much advice. And sometimes I've gone back 2 or 3 times to seek advice of what I can do to change so that I can help strengthen her. So, and then when I learn something, then I pass it on to the community surrounding her, at school, the teachers, everybody. So different strategies.
And it sounds like, the keys are that we can't fix the injury to the brain. We can't fix FASD, but we can change the environment. We can change how we react to it. And that sounds like what you're doing with a lot of success. Now, on September 16th, Adopt for Life has a webinar for caregivers, which I'm also hosting. And again, it's based on using this book as a tool. And then another one on September 23rd for awaiting parents, prospective adoptive parents. Are there any other events or things coming up that you know of in your community or in the region that you think people should know about, Miranda?
We're doing the FASD talks with you that we're having up. We're going to be posting that on that's for Northern Ontario. I'm excited about that. It's going to be 20-minute presentations on different topics. And then there's a Q&A afterwards that we're going to be working towards answering as many questions on specific topics. In Northern Ontario, we have our Northern Ontario Facebook page for the Adopt for Life, but every community has got their own support. It's amazing, especially this month. There's so much going on. I would look at the Health Nexus site to see what's going on in your own community. This month there's so much going on, and I know up here in Northern Ontario, the Northwest Health Center, and they're the ones that do the diagnostics. They're going to be focusing on FASD and addictions for the next year, and creating more community awareness and supports in our community because a lot of our children do struggle with addictions, and what we can do to help our kids stay away from. So it's educating parents and supporting everybody throughout that. So there is a lot, so many amazing stuff that's coming through in the next year.
Yeah, and especially with FASD Awareness Month right now in September, it just seems every year there are more and more things being offered, and I think we're all getting more comfortable with the virtual world. So many interesting webinars and opportunities. Now, if people want a copy of the book, Chantal or Miranda, how would they go about it?
I would contact your RPL, and we can help navigate getting that book for you. And Chantal, you were going to post on the links where you can.
Yeah, so in the comments, it's probably one of the earlier comments, there's a link to our webpage for FASD&Me, and on that page is everything you need to know about ordering the book. If you are a registered parent or caregiver in our P2P support network, then you are eligible to receive one copy for free. So you can do that directly on the page. There's a form that you just fill out. And it's really, really easy. Or if you prefer to reach out to your RPL, you can do it that way as well. So, if you're not registered, there's also a link to register, and then you will receive the free copy. Otherwise, they're $15 a copy, or 2 for $25. And Nancy had mentioned earlier in the program that we are working on these downloadable, I'm still trying to work out if that's a real word or not, printables. So the worksheets that are included in the book, but this way you get to print them, more than one copy so that you can keep updating them as you go. And those will be available. They're coming soon. So just stay tuned on our Facebook page, and we'll definitely be making an announcement when it's ready to go and launch, so you can download that from our website.
And also it's being translated, Chantal, and you have a French webinar as well.
That's right. So the book is being translated currently. I don't have a date for anybody right now, but just know that it is coming and stay tuned. When we have updates, we will definitely let everybody know. There is a French webinar this week. It's this Thursday, the 9th in the evening with Maud Champagne. And I've included the links to all the webinars that we have coming up this month in the chat. So if you're interested, or you can just go to the website, dotforlife.com/webinars, and they're all there also.
Okay. And Miranda, when you wrote the book, I know you wanted it to be a tool for Hope to build her advocacy skills, but it's become a really useful tool for professionals and frontline workers. Were you expecting them to be using it so much?
No, I didn't expect that at all. I'm actually really excited how it's just grown, and even like with what you're doing, it's so nice to see the changes. And yeah, I'm super excited to see where this goes, and I'm very thankful. And it's blowing me away, actually, to be honest with you. So.
Are there any other things that you want to share? Were there any other surprising places that you found help in your community, Miranda, as you've been on this journey?
With the FASD worker, just even in the last year, it's, you don't yet, the children just need to be suspected to get the support.
Exactly.
I've had a lot of kids in my home, and 4 children have gotten diagnosed around the age of 12, 13. And I really struggle with that, at that age. The children need to get, I think, 9, better age, 9 or even younger. And then start using the tool right off the bat so that the children have that tool and they feel confident to be able to share who they are and what's, and pull it out. And, it's part of them. It's their story. It's so important that our children start to learn to talk about it at a younger age, just to feel that they're able to talk and voice who they are and what their needs are to be able to help themselves. I think that was part of the biggest thing, is I wanted Hope not to feel misunderstood about why she has FASD. So it's just using that tool to help her through the diagnostic period. So early intervention and work with your FASD worker. And even if the child is suspected, just start using the book and build that community just around that child so that they can confidently work through the things that they need to work through with you.
Are there any questions coming in the chat, Chantel?
Just a lot of likes and hearts, and I think all your words, Miranda, are really coming through for a lot of people. We had one person just kind of comment, but I guess in the bigger scheme, her comment was that most schools don't understand. So I mean, the bigger picture there is that there's still such a lack of awareness and education, and still so much of the onus on the parent to advocate. But I think, Miranda, you said it a few times, that it's just building that community, right? And arming yourself so you're not alone on that advocacy front.
And helping the child to be able to have that voice, you know what I mean? So that the teachers or the schools listen, start understanding them. And that's, if they have a book, then they can pull out the book and say, you know what, look, let's talk about this. Like, it helps with the child to be able to like, it's almost like I'm big on redirecting my children when they're escalated, right? So if they have an SFP that's really, really good, and they're escalating, they're triggering, you can pull out the book and say, okay, let's talk about this, and just kind of use it. Our children just kind of get out of there. If you redirect them in a way that works, and use this as a tool to help them when they're dealing with whatever the trigger, or like, even if sometimes you might have to not use it during the escalation, but then when you're wanting to talk, because our children, we talked earlier about discipline, our children don't get discipline. So as part of the safety plan, if the child's at school and they're escalating, and then you've redirected them and they're calm, take them to a calm place and say, okay, you know what, let's write this down and put it in their book, what worked, or what they come up with, a safety plan of what they want to do, because they had a trigger, talk about it and then put it in the book, and then it's there and for them to be reminded of what they're going to do. And it's also there for you to help them because they're included in the plans of what they need going forward. So it's meant to be a tool that's in progress, and where you're constantly adding to it, you're constantly working with it, and you're constantly using it as a tool for the child to put input in what they need to deal with whatever situation they're dealing with right now.
Well, I know you also have pages where the child just talks about their likes and their interests. And even that could be such a good tool for their support circle, because that's even a way to distract them, isn't it? When they're escalating, if you can sort of redirect them to talking about one of these things they love, like animals. Have you found that the teachers or professionals that you've given the book to, are they receptive to that? Do you think they're reading it and using it as a tool?
In my community, yeah, I had a meeting with our 2 CX for for our education board, so they're interested in it. And now that with the training that you guys are doing with the educators, I think just tying that all in, and because it's continuous, we have to realize that the training is continuous. Learning about the child is continuous, and just keeping a consistent plan that works at the home and at the school, or whatever extracurricular activities that the child's involved in. If it's the same, then you're keeping that child at an even, and it just builds on their confidence because they feel safe and they feel confident, and then you're not going to be dealing with as many triggers.
Mm-hmm. And I think also people may not know that they can even ask their FASD worker to do training in the school or for the school board too. So if they want more opportunities or more in depth or geared to a certain age group, they can be doing that as well.
Utilize your community supports when you go to meetings. I've had in my community, the OT, the FASD worker, they're the ones going in a meeting with me just to get that support. That's when things have changed with it for the children in their school environment. It's hard, but it's very important that you get as much support for the child so that the educators know that there's different ways to approach the reasons why the child is escalating or the child's misbehaving, and then work towards a solution and a resolution to help the child. And you as the parent know exactly what the children need, so just work toward that and just keep voicing your opinion, and eventually somebody will hear and they'll work with it, and then it's like for our children.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. I know we could keep talking about this, but I want to be conscious of the time and everybody else's time. So, but thank you so much, Miranda. It's always a pleasure to see you and talk to you, and sharing so much of your experience and amazing suggestions for our community. If you're watching this on replay, you can still ask your question in the comments, and we will be sure to get back to you. Another thank you to Nancy for jumping in and being our guest host this week. You're going to be guest host next week too. Next week, Yvonne Williams is going to be our guest, and we're going to talk about how to talk about FASD. We've already had a few questions coming in about, like, how do I talk about it? My child is applying for a job. What do I say? How much do I say? A lot of questions like this that parents and caregivers need help with. So stay tuned for that next week. All the links for the webinars are in the chat. And if you aren't already liking and following us on our public Facebook page, that way you're sure to not miss any of our events. So thanks again to Nancy and Miranda, much appreciated. Take care of yourselves and have a great day, rest of your day.
Take care, bye.
Hi, thanks.